In this lesson, I'm going to talk about the attacking phase, more specifically system hacking, both against Unix and Unix and Windows. Now, a lot of times people will talk to me about this sort of thing when I tell them I do ethical hacking and such, and they're probably like, hey, man, you probably just break into Windows products all day long, man. Nah, not necessarily. Now, Windows would be the best install base for an attacker because obviously the attacker wants to go where the majority of users are going to be located at, which is typically going to be Windows. But Unix and Linux are a lot of times used in servers, like web servers and just regular servers in general, because of its crazy amount of uptime. I mean, you can keep some of these Linux on for years and years and years without having to restart them, unlike Windows, where you basically have to restart after everything you do and every patch that you put in. So there's constant restarts for Windows, not typically great for availability when you're doing servers. So a lot of times they'll use Linux for servers and for web servers. So we're going to actually go ahead and deviate from the norm when it comes to this topic and go straight out of the box, blast it right into Linux. So in this case, our victim is going to be Metasploitable 2, which is a Linux distribution. It's purposely vulnerable for testing purposes. And I'll be using my attacking machine here of Kali Linux, which is at 10.00.100. The victim is at 10.00.104. So when we're dealing with Linux here, what we may want to attack is something that is prominent on Linux, which is SSH. So we want to go ahead and see first off in this demo about seeing if we can gain access to this other machine using SSH and using it against them, if they have it, which most likely they will if it's Unix or Linux. So let's pretend we've done our recon, we've done our scanning, we've done our enumeration, but we want to find out if there's anything on this machine. Now, when I mention SSH, it's a more secure way to do telnet. And if you're not familiar with telnet, it's basically running remote commands on a command line terminal on a server. And if you use telnet, telnet does everything in clear text, making it not an ideal product. So you could use SSH, which puts everything into an encrypted tunnel, and it's on by default and installed by default on most Unix and Linux. Not so with Windows, but definitely with Unix and Linux. So in this case here, let's go ahead and start off by running an RPC command. So we're going to say RPC info for remote procedure call. And I'm just going to check and see what's on that other machine over there for services. Okay, it looks like we got an NFS share. Now, NFS is the default share for Linux and Unix, and as far as like if you share a folder or whatever. And SMB would be the one for Windows. So here we can see they're running NFS, got no lock manager, and mount daemons. So there's a possibility there's a mounted folder that we may be able to tap into. And if we're lucky, we can see how far we can get into the rabbit's hole there on that bad boy. So I can use a command called show mount, which will basically show me what they have mounted or allow you to mount to for shares. Now, obviously, common sense would tell you if you're hosting your own folder share, NFS share called stuff, you don't want people to access it. If I were to do a show mount and I saw that you were able to, or I was able to mount to / to the right stuff, then I know basically I'm allowed to mount to it, and that's not a good thing. You haven't locked it down on your end. In this particular instance, it'd be even better if it was just /, because just / is the top of the file system for Linux. Okay, everything starts from the / to the right. So if we found that, that'd be even better. And I'm saying that because when I run my show mount, -E 10.0.0.104, it indeed has that capability. Surprise, surprise, almost like I've done this before. So here we see there's a / and there's an asterisk telling me wildcard. So basically top of the file system. This is not wise or good for the victim. It's great for me, the bad guy. So we're going to go ahead and try to take advantage of this particular mount by, first off, creating myself a directory here to store things like SSH, because we're going to hopefully find an SSH folder on that particular machine. So first off, let me make a directory. I'll put it here in the root. I'm going to call it raise_SSH. And what I'll do is I'll navigate over to there, /root/raise_SSH. And you can see here there's nothing in the folder. So what I'd like to do is first make a known host file, which are typically for clients and, to let us know what we consider to be a known host and what we agree is a known host. If I was a server, it would be an authorized keys file in addition to that. But for this one, we're just going to make a random known host file. And the best way to make randomness is by using the dev null. So I'm going to go ahead and cat dev/null, which is just random characters, into a file that I'm going to call known host3. All right, so we got that. Good to go on that. Next, what I'd like to do is generate a key pair for myself for SSH. So I'm going to say SSH-keygen. There we go. SSH keygen. We'll say -t. I'm going to use RSA as the encryption. Pretty solid encryption to be used. And the bit size, we'll go with 4096. All right, so it's now generating a public and private key pair for me. It's asking me to give a file name. I'm going to call it test_RSA. Passphrase, I'm going to say wingnut. Wingnut. All right, so it looks like we got ourselves a key pair now. We got a public and a private key ready to rock and roll up in this bad boy. So I'm liking life on that. Let's go ahead and navigate back here. And actually, first off, let me verify that I actually did generate that real quick. Let's see, cd/root/raise_SSH. Okay, good. So there's my private key, there's my public key, life is good. All right, let's go navigate to the top of the file system here, and we're going to mount -t, specifically NFS, because that's what they're using for that Linux share over there. And let's see, 10.0.0.104, which in this case is our victim. And they're telling me that I can mount to the / directory, which is the top of the file system. So that's what we're actually going to mount to. I'm going to put it in the MMT folder that's already here in Linux. It's a location folder already in here called mount, and that's typically what you use to mount folders to. And let's go ahead and disable the let's see. Let's go ahead and disable the file lock-in. All right, good. So let's find out if we actually did mount it here. df-k. All right, so right down here we can see we've actually mounted that particular system there, their folder there, and it's the top of the file system. So let's navigate over there and see what we can find. So we're going to go to the mount, root, and let's see what's here. I'm going to do an ls-tac-la so I can see any hidden files. And there we go. So we see they actually have an SSH folder. Okay. Let's go ahead and navigate there, see what we got. All right. So we got an authorized keys file and we got a known host file. Let's find out who's authorized on the Metasploitable VM to use SSH here. Okay, so it looks like MSFadmin, right there, MSFadmin at Metasploitable is allowed, and that is his key pair. All right, so that's all good. We're loving life there. It looks like he's able to log in. Now, I don't know his credentials, so we're not going to be using that. But we're going to try a little trick of our own here. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my key. So copy, let's see, root/raise_SSH, and I'm going to take my test_RSA.public key, and I'm going to copy it over here to the MMT/root/.ssh. Okay. All right. So I've basically taken my public key that I had made previously with the test_RSA one, and I popped it over here onto that guy's server. Okay. So in this case here, what I would like to do is I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and take mine. So we'll say cat test_RSA.pub 2 brackets authorized keys. Okay. So basically with the 2 double brackets, if you're not familiar, this is for what they call append. So if I had a file and I wanted to take something that was there, like the test RSA pub, content, and put it into the authorized keys file here, if I were to use one single bracket, I would have basically overwritten what was already there. And the idea when you're doing this system hacking stuff is you don't want the guys to know, the victim to know, that you've compromised them. And if he's not able to log in with his own credentials to SSH, he's going to get suspicious. He's going to look at the SSH authorized keys file to find out why his key isn't there, and he's going to see ours, and I don't want that. So we definitely don't want to do a single bracket because that will overwrite his existing one. I still want him to be able to do his business, but I'm appending mine to the end of it. So now if we look at the authorized keys file, we can now see that not only is his in there, but mine is as well. So you can see right down here at the bottom, root at Cali. Life is good. So I've now added myself to this guy's server's authorized keys file, which is pretty awesome to have. Next, we're going to use my private key and try to use my login credentials and try to log in SSH-wise into this guy's machine. So we'll say SSH-I root raise underscore SSH, and we're going to be using the test underscore RSA, and we're going to do this root at 10.0.0.104, which in this case is the victim, not my machine, but the victim machine, but using my credentials. So now it's going to ask me, do you want to go ahead and connect? Yes, I do trust it. I want to connect to it. It's going to ask for the passphrase that I had made, which was wingnut. And there we go. So now you can see no longer am I root at Cali. Where am I at? I am now root at Metasploitable. And the first thing you do when you break into any Linux machine is you find out who did you break in as. A great command for that is the word ID. Now, in the case of Linux, root, or the top dog, as it were, is going to be the number 0. In this case, that's what you're looking for. And here I can see the UID equals 0. There I am as root. Life is good. We're loving life on that. So in this case here, I've got access, and I can also say, who am I? Find out that I'm actually root in this case here, and everything's good. And then I can also go ahead, now that I'm root, and I'm on this guy's machine, we can go ahead and cat the Passwd file. And if you watch my password video that I had created, you'll see a lot of the description about this, where I would have to cat the etc/shadow file for any hashes. And because I'm actually root, I am able to do that. So right up here, there we go, MSF admin right there. Life is good. And there's that. So I can see clearly here that I can use the MSF admin. So on this one here, I'm pretty sure he's got a password. I don't think it's blank. So what you could do, let's see here. I don't believe their password is blank, but let's test it and see if there's one. I'm pretty sure the password is MSF admin as well. But let me make sure here. What we could do now is we could save this here as msfadmin.txt, put it right here in my root directory. Save that. Close that out. And let me open up another terminal. And now I haven't tested this prior to the recording because I don't know if there's a password for MSFadmin or not, or if it's blank or whatever, but we'll see. So here we're going to locate, first off, a word list that's on Kali. Okay, there we go. So rocku.txt, it is in zipped format. So let me go ahead and copy that path, and we're going to do a g-unzip here for that particular path. Excellent. And we'll go ahead and use John the Ripper, since it's already here. Again, if you want to be more familiar with passwords and how they work, watch my password video that I have set up for this modules. So it's pretty in-depth. So I'm waiting on that to unzip that particular program or text document, and then we're going to try to use it against MSFadmin. But it seems to be lagging out, so I'm not sure what's going on there. But while we're waiting on that, basically what has happened here is we have the enumeration that we did at the very beginning with the show mount and all the other stuff to verify whether or not we can actually go ahead and break in to a system or see an NFS share in this case. And because we could see that and we did the show mount, we mounted to the top of the file root system of that particular machine. We then proceeded to go ahead and take and generate our own SSH keys, and then made those SSH keys an authorized key on that particular server. Pretty tricky way to do things, but all right, looks like that unzipped. So let's try word list equals, let's see, paste in that. And we're going to do, oh shoot, I don't know, is this MD5? It must be MD5. I think it's format equals MD5. And we're going to do it against root slash msfadmin.txt. And there we go. Let's see, no file or directory. Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Let me get rid of this. All right, so it's going to be using the word list to try to find msfadmin or whatever the password may be, and it may take a while. So I'll just leave that be for now. But basically, those are the steps you would take to crack these passwords here. And again, if you have a good word list, you should be able to find whatever the passphrase is, if there's one at all, for this particular account. But I'm just kind of showing you what you can do once you've actually gone ahead and enumerated and broken into this particular machine. Okay? So I'm going to Control-C out of this because, well, we already went over this in depth on the password one that we had before. Apparently, that's going to take a little bit of a while, so we're going to close that out. And let's go ahead and close up out of this as well. Okay, and we'll exit out of there. And that concludes that particular demo there. So I hope you learned a little bit about this one here, about breaking and compromising into another machine using SSH on this environment here. Another thing that you could do as well is you could take a physical machine and mount over the top of it, or take on the top of it a DVD. So it'll be more of the physical access side of it. So let's set up a scenario. Let's say at your workplace doesn't allow the people that smoke to smoke indoors during breaks. They tell them to go out back, and there's like a little gazebo area in the back where they smoke, right? Let's say this is your target area, this target company here. So let's say this happens, and 8:30 every morning they go out there and they smoke for their break, and then they come back inside. If I were a bad guy, what I could do essentially is go online, maybe on eBay or something, and find a pretty cheap telecom uniform, buy it, dress up as a telecom operator, have the full gear, have the notepad, notebook, everything in hand, and I could go there at 8:25. And if you're not using a fence, which a lot of companies don't take the money or time to put up a fence around the entire area where the smoke break room is, I can walk straight into the back. So if I walk straight into the back at 8:25 and I start smoking, as the smokers roll out the back, there's a high probability, if it's a generic user who's not very tech savvy or tech minded, they're probably going to look at that and say, oh, this guy's got a telecom uniform on. He's probably a contractor working here for the day, that sort of thing. So I could probably fool them into thinking that I'm there working on things during the day. So if that's the case and we're all done, doing our thing and break is over and I walk towards the back door, what do you think happens, right? Pretty high percentage of the time, probably they'll hold the door open for me as I walk straight into the building. Then, as I walk through the building and I see a physical machine, a desktop client, and it's there, if I turn it off and restart it, if you're not using a BIOS password, I can change the boot order to boot to CD-ROM. Now, why would I want to do that as an attacker? Well, Linux distributions will let you, well, most of them, will let you burn the entire Linux operating system to a DVD. And you can run the entire operating system from a DVD. In this case here, I have a DVD that I like, a Kali. It's called Kali Linux. And Kali Linux, as you can see by looking at the applications here, has a large amount of hacking tools being used by good guys and bad guys alike. Password cracking attempts, exploitation tools, sniffing and spoofing, backdoors, you name it, it's on here. It's pretty awesome. And you can burn it to a USB or a DVD. So let's say I burned it to a DVD, popped it in, and I booted to it. That's the scenario we're in. So here you can see that I'm actually booted into a Windows 7 machine. This is a Windows 7 VM. The actual hard drive is a Windows 7 machine. It's a Windows 7 operating system. But the DVD that I've put into it, I'm mounted on, I ran this on top of it. You don't have to install the operating system. You can run the entire operating system from this DVD. So I'm basically on top of the underlying Windows 7 system. So what I could do here is I could run an fdisk -L, and I can see here that there's a NTFS partition, which probably tells me it's a Windows operating system, obviously. Let's say I don't know anything about the OS, but I look here and I see that one's got the largest amount of blocks. I'm assuming that's probably the C drive, and it looks like it's dev SDA2. So what I could do is make a directory. In the mount directory, we'll call it SDA2. All right, now I could go ahead and mount /dev/SDA2 over to MNT/SDA2. Okay, and then from there, I could, if I could mount it, it would be under SDA2. It's probably a Windows product, so I'm assuming, and this is an assumption, it's Windows, and there's probably a System 32, and I'm looking specifically for the config folder. And lo and behold, I'm able to go there. So here I can see that I've actually mounted the underlying hard drive that's underneath this OS, and I've mounted it to this Kali Linux. So doing that, I can notice here that this is the directory that has everybody's passwords in it. Everybody's passwords are in that file called SAM. SAM Security Accounts Manager. In this case here, it's being protected by a 128-bit sys key. But the only thing that can really crack this particular bad boy is a boot key. Well, it just so happens the boot key is right here under System. So what I could do is use a couple tools. One is called BK Hive. Okay, BK Hive. Actually, I got to do capital, right? It is case sensitive. So System, I'll put it to a text file called out. And lo and behold, pop, 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 another puppy drop. There she be. And there's the boot key. Love and life. So next, I'll use another tool called SAMDump2 against the SAM database using that boot key, and pop, 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 another server drop, and there's all of our credentials for that particular server. How awesome is that, huh? So there you go. Good times. And that is basically breaking into that Windows machine. And then from there, I can then proceed to use the same techniques to try to crack the password for administrator in this case here. I could use the John the Ripper and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes you may even be able to go ahead and do a few other things with it as well. Let me see here. Trying to think of, I can't remember the name of it right now. I'll probably remember it and I'll do it for another part of the demos possibly. But it was something with, what is the name of that? Sticky keys. That's right. Sticky keys. There was something that I had done before where I would actually make a backup of sticky keys, and I would actually go ahead and copy command prompt into sticky keys, which I think is under System 32. I believe that's where that's at. But anyways, you can try to compromise something like that with it, which is pretty interesting. I wonder if I can just copy straight into it. Let's see. Copy cmd.exe. I believe the name of it is secthc.exe. Actually, let me make a backup of that first. I believe this is the way you can do it. I haven't done this in a while. Let me call it. Let me put it into a backup file there. I think that's the name for sticky keys, and you could copy cmd.exe into cthc.exe. Okay, and then unmount. Okay, and then what you could do is, let me see. Let's shut this down. And then I'll remove the DVD. So we'll come over here to the settings. And I'm doing this one on the fly because I don't know if this will work or not, but I think I got the right names. So let me get rid of that. Okay, nothing there in the DVD. So now if I were to just boot it by itself, it should just be Windows 7. And something interesting that you can probably do is when it gets to the login page, without having to crack the credentials, you may be able to get into your system authority using this technique. So sticky keys, if you're not familiar with sticky keys, it's a way that, what do they call it, accessibility function that you can use for people that have handicaps as far as not being able to do like Control Alt Delete and spreading their hands across. They can only use like one hand or whatever. That will basically say that if you hit Control, it will stick. If you hit Alt, it will stick, and then Delete, so on and so forth. So it's going to run before you actually log in. So knowing that, it actually gets called up with hitting Shift 5 times. So I'm going to actually hit Shift 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, we don't want to turn it on. And it looks like it didn't work. Epic fail. But what it would normally have done if I probably misspelled the actual executables, but what it would do is bring up command prompt, usually, and you can do an NT authority from there. But either way. Oh, there it is. Looks like it may be coming up. Just taking its time. Oh, there we go. So as you can see right there, it's actually brought up command prompt. Let's see who I am. As I told you before, the highest credential you can have on Windows is NT authority. And look at that. You got NT authority without even logging in to the operating system. How super sweet is that? That is killer. Good stuff. You may even be able to go ahead and, let's see, explorer.exe. You may be able to actually get a start menu. Let's see here. So this is a good thing to play. Yeah, this is a good backup for you administrators out there that may forget your login or whatever. You can make the sticky keys trick work. All I basically did is I copied command prompt into sticky keys, and when sticky keys gets called with Shift 5 times, it'll actually call it command prompt instead. So it's kind of a backdoor, really, when you think about it, for bad guys and such. But anyways, this is a good trick to do here, and I think while running this command here, you may even be able to get a start menu there on the bottom. Let's take a look at the bottom of the screen. But you can see clear as day that you've got NT authority system access, and you're not even logged into the actual system. So these are definitely the problems that we have when you're having a lack of physical security in your environment. If somebody can physically gain access into your building, look at that. Start menu, everything. Isn't that awesome? Check that out. And I haven't even logged in. How super awesome is that? So anyways, that's an example of one of those ways that you can compromise the system using that. Now, we got quite a few tricks up our sleeves for some upcoming slides, upcoming parts of this module. We're going to separate this into different modules probably because it's a fairly large topic. But for now, that kind of gives you an idea of a couple different ways that you can do compromise. And when we get back on another module, we're going to talk a little bit more about things like Metasploit and how to use that to create things like Trojans and viruses to break in to systems using it that way.